Hello and welcome. In today's episode, we're going to look at how can we make our widgets replicate between our clients. As you can see right now, we have 3 different clients running. Each of them is assigned a team variable, which if they're on the blue team, their health bar is blue. If they're on the red team, their health bar is red. If I press 2 on my keyboard, there's a 50-50 chance to change the team. There we go. This guy changed from red to blue, and all the clients automatically see how he's changed. And if we keep changing through the teams by pressing 2, they can automatically see, and everyone can see everyone's changes from their team. And we look at why we can't directly replicate widgets, but instead we can replicate the data that drives the widgets. So let's get straight into it. Let's go to our content drawer, go to multiplayer, go to our UI folder, and we're going to make a new widget. So search for a widget, if I can spell it right, widget blueprint, user widget, and we're just going to call this WBP underscore health bar. We're also going to use the same bar for showing both the health and the team, because we're just going to change the color of the bar, which fills up when we're indicating what team we're on. So it's going to serve the purpose of both health and team. Let's open this up, and I'm just going to make a really super simple setup. I'm just going to add a size box. There we go, size box, and then a progress bar. That's all I'm going to add, nothing fancy. I'm just wanting to show the logic, not specifically how widgets work. Right, this isn't a widgets tutorial, let's just focus on the logic. Let's make this size box a bit smaller. Width height override, let's, 100 by 20. I think that's a good size for a health bar designed on screen. There we go. Okay, now when we're thinking about widgets, there's something very important to talk about, especially for multiplayer, and that is you cannot replicate a widget. The widget in itself is designed to only run on the owning client, so you cannot replicate a widget. If we just change what the widget looks like, if we run our game and we have the widget on multiple players and one player's widget updates and changes, there is no possible way, at least in the Unreal Engine, to make that change of the widget replicate to the other player's screens. You cannot do it. So what we do instead, to achieve the exact same effect, right, we're going to effectively replicate the widgets, but the difference is we don't replicate the widget, we replicate the data that we are passing to the widget. We're going to pass 2 pieces of data to the widget, we're going to pass in the team, and we're going to pass in the health. Now, the widget itself isn't replicated, but we will replicate the team variable and the health variable, so that everyone knows the health and team of everyone. So on everyone's computer, when they do run an owning client and update the widgets, they have the variables to update the health bars of everyone to the correct values, because we replicate the data, not the widget itself. It's very important to understand that. Now, speaking of data and variables, we need to get some data to our health bar. So I'm going to add a variable, and I'm just going to call this player, make this of type BP underscore top-down character, and make this instance editable and expose on spawn, so we can see it when we initially get in to the health bar and create it. Now, what I would like to be able to do is get the player, drag off here and say get team. Now, we don't store the team variable on the player itself, we store the team variable on the player state. So I'm going to temporarily move the team variable to the character as well. And the main storing and changing for the logic will stay in the player state. That's fine, that the actual variable stored in the player state, but the player will know, they will be told by the player state what the value of team is, so that the player, when they create the widget, they can move that data along to the percentage health bar. So let's go to our player, let's go to content drawer, content, top down, blueprints. We moved it, didn't we? We moved it to our multiplayer folder, blueprints, open our top down character and make a variable called team of type E underscore team. And like I said, we need these values to be replicated. So we're going to go on the side, replication changes to replicated, because we're not going to replicate the health bar itself, but we're going to replicate the data we pass to the health bar, so everyone can update it at the same time. Make sure this is replicated. And now we're going to add the widgets we just created, the health bar. So go to the mesh, add component, and let's just add a widget. We're going to make this world space, draw size, we put this to 120, didn't we? And we're just going to move the location above the character's head, and we're going to input the correct widget we need. So the widget class, we're going to search for WBP underscore health bar. We should turn it a little bit so it's facing the correct way. There we go. Now I'm also going to duplicate this widget. I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to turn it the other way so it's facing both ways. And now we can see it on both sides. You might be wondering, why did I do this instead of just saying on screen? Because if you set the space from world to screen, you can always see it above the character's head and it's sort of 2D. However, when you have it on screen, it isn't replicated. You cannot see the widget on other clients, or you can't see other clients' widgets. So when we have it on world, we can now see everyone's. Like I said, the widget isn't replicated, but the fact that there is a widget is replicated. So everyone, to start off, will see everyone's widgets when they're in world, but if they're in screen, I think only the server can see everyone else's widgets, but the other clients cannot see other clients' widgets. So we need this in world, but I've duplicated it to sort of achieve the same effect. If we play, we should just see it above the character's head. Here we go, just to show you what it's going to look like in the game. This is what our health bar looks like. There we go. Let's close that. We just wanted that for testing purposes. Let's go to the BP underscore top down character on event graph. Search for event begin play. And we're going to say create widget. Create widget. This widget is of course going to be of type WBP underscore health bar, the widget we just made. We're going to promote this to a variable called health bar. We can input the player as self because that is of type BP underscore top down character, which we are of course. And we're going to get both of these widgets that we just made and say set widget. And the widget we're setting them to is the health bar that we just promoted to a variable. We can duplicate this code and put in the other widget. So now both of these widgets will get updated whenever we change something to this health bar. That's why we've done that. That's why we're setting these widgets to the health bar. Even though we can see it at the moment, if we change something to the health bar, it wouldn't reflect in the widget. So when we set it to the health bar variable we just made, now when we change the health bar variable, the widgets will update that change and they'll change at the same time because we set both of them to do that. In order to demonstrate the change that we can have in the health bar, I'm just going to make a custom event to show that. So if we search for keyboard event 2, you don't necessarily need to do this, but if you do it as well, you'll know if yours is working or not. We're going to make a custom event called update team on character. We are going to set this to run on server and reliable, of course. We make pretty much everything reliable. There's no reason not to, really. And this custom event is going to take an input called team of type eTeam, and whatever we take as an input, we're going to set our new team variable to be that, and we're going to call that update team on character every time we press 2. Update team on character, if I can spell. Now, you know, we can't just set the team right after pressing 2 because we have to specify running on server so that the server knows the team has changed and the server can replicate that change to all the other clients. So because it's running on the server, everyone in the game knows that this person's team has changed. The inputted team, I'm just going to say select, and then the index is going to be random bool with weight, which gives us a 50-50 chance of either changing to red or to blue. So every time we press 2, the team's going to change. Very nice. But of course, that's just testing for change. When we actually change the variable, when it changes on the player state, we need to replicate that change over to the player. So on the match player state, every time we update our team, we are going to say get pawn, which is going to get the pawn that is attached to our player state. So it's going to get the character. We are going to cast to BP underscore top down character. You could use an interface here if you wanted. I'm just trying to go quicker because we understand now how interfaces works. There's no point slowing everything down to explain it again. We've used interfaces loads so far. And now we're just going to say set team to this new team we've just made. So set team to our team, and that team variable we're inputting has just changed. We know it has because it's changed there. Compile, save. Now on our top down character, the last thing to do here is on event begin play, we need to get the current team from our player state and set our team variable to the player state team, because whenever the player dies, whenever this top down character dies, we're going to destroy the character and then we're going to spawn it in again as a new one, and the player controller is going to repossess that new top down character. Now what that means is every single variable on our top down character is going to be reset to its default value. So this team will be reset. If our player dies and respawns, their team variable will be reset to none. However, the match player state, it doesn't persist between levels, but it does persist between player deaths. You know, every time we destroy the player, well, the player controller is still there and the player state is still there. So that variable is still persistent, so we can set it back to this team. So as soon as our player spawns in, if we have a team, the match player state can set it. Very nice. So we're going to say get player state, and don't get the one with the index. Make sure you get the one all the way at the bottom, which is blue, because this one with the index, get player state index 0, you know, out of all the lists of all the player states, there might be like 10 of them. If you've got 10 players, you're just getting the same one every time, but the player state, this blue one, gets the player state that is specific to your character. So if we cast it to BP underscore match player state, plug that in. Very nice. If this cast fails, the only reason it could fail is because for some reason we've happened to load this quicker than the player state has loaded. So if the cast fails, I would like to do a short delay and then retry, because there's no real reason our player state should fail. We've made the player state's all linked up. This might fail if you haven't applied the player state in your settings, but we know we've done that. So this is only really going to fail if it just hasn't loaded yet. And if it hasn't loaded yet, if we wait 0.2 seconds, it will have loaded. So we'll run it again. And we're just going to get the team from our player state and set our team variable to be that one, to make sure our team is the right one straight from the get-go. That's all very nice. We have completed all the logic for changing our team, setting our team, etc. Now the health bar needs to reflect that team. So in our health bar, on our designer, let's go to the progress bar. We need to go to the fill color and opacity. So under fill color and opacity, on the side, there is this button for binding. Now there's two ways really to assign your variable to the widget. You can either bind it or you can use an event-driven system. In this series, purely for educational purposes, I'm going to show you both ways. Today, right here, right now, we're going to bind our team variable, which if you've worked with widgets before, you know that is not efficient. And it's not. I'm telling you now it's not, but I'm going to show you how to do it, because when we add the health variable, we are going to do that with an event-driven system that will be a lot more modular and it will be better. So then you'll understand both ways of doing it. And if you would like to change how the team is added, you will very easily be able to do that. It'll take you 2 minutes once you know how to do it with the health. So now we're going to bind it. If you're thinking that's wrong, it is, let's be honest, but I'm going to show you how to do it when it gets to the health. It's the exact same thing. I'm just showing you both ways. So that's why I'm going to bind it right now. We're going to click on create binding. And in this return node, what we want to do is we want to get our player. We want to check, is it valid? And if it is valid, then we are going to say select on the return node. So drag off the return value and search for select. We don't want the one with the boolean. We want the one under utilities, because that allows us to plug in the team variable into the index, the wildcard variable. The wildcard just means it will become whatever variable type you plug into it. So now it has become this. For none, I'm going to have it as white. For red, of course, we're going to have it as red. And for blue, we are going to put the color to fill in as like a blue color. Compile and save, is valid, plug that in. Very cool. Go back to our map. Let's open the lobby map so we can properly test it from the lobby. So go to our content, maps, lobby map. Very nice. Make sure we have 3 player characters, net mode as client. When we launch the game now, we're going to have 3 open up. So we've got our 3 characters right here. They're all on the default white so far because they haven't yet been assigned a team. If we press J on all 3 of them, accept the match. This is going to half work. I'll explain why in a minute. It's not a problem. We're going to fully fix it afterwards, but let's just see what's going to happen. We're going to load into the map. Each client can see their own health bar updated. This isn't replicated so far, which isn't great, but I know why that's happening. We're going to go through it in a second. However, when we press 2, which was our default key binding for updating the color, as you can see, when the first one changes, all the other ones are seeing the change. So when we replicate the team change, that is happening great. We know that when we press 2, that team change we just set up, that default keyboard setting, that is working, and everyone can see the change in team. Now, the reason it's not happening to start with is because when we set the team initially on the player state, this function is running on the owning client, which means everyone is having their own team updated, but it's only running on their client, so no one else knows about it. This variable is set to replicated, yes, but it's only going to be replicated to the other clients if the server knows about it. We have to run this on the server side so that server knows about this team variable that has been updated, which it doesn't yet know about. Now, we can't just set this to run on server because that kind of breaks the logic we've set up so far. This is supposed to run on an in client. So the solution I came up with is quite simple. We're just going to make another custom event. We're going to call this server side underscore update team, and we're going to duplicate all of this logic, do the exact same thing on the other side, plug that in. All of this is going to run. We need to input the team that we're updating to, so team of type eTeam, plug that in. This is going to run on the server and it's going to be reliable. We're going to copy, compile and save. And yeah, the reason this works is because when we first start the game, our WBP, not our WBP health bar, our game mode, it assigns our team, but to assign our team, it calls the run on owning client function. So only each individual client receives that change of team, and it isn't replicated to the other clients because it's ran on their owning client. So now we're going to add this extra function, execute on server. So server side update team. So every single time we want to do this, we'll call both of them. So now the client is going to know and the server is going to know. There is a function called, or type of function called multicast, which runs on the server and on the owning client. So you might be thinking, why don't we do a multicast? Well, we can't do a multicast because this isn't on the server, this is on the client side. So it's only, as you see here, only call this from the server. That's what that little box says. So we can't run a multicast here, but this is going to work. Let's go back to our game mode. So multiplayer, blueprints, pp_match game mode, and in our assign player team to the side, we're just going to call server side update team, and we're going to plug in for this first one. It's going to be the last random last player. Then for these next two, we can copy and paste this function over here. We can plug in the current player state, set the team to blue, assign that there, paste that again. This time it's going to be on red, plug in the current player state, plug that in, compile and save. Now when we run the game, we will see this works. So I was about to say how it should work, but I was running it and I actually realized that 50% of the time, one of the clients weren't reflecting the changes to the other ones. It was mostly working, but there was usually like one client that wasn't working properly. And I think it's because this player state hadn't yet loaded and wasn't yet ready to give the team variable over to the player before this widget had fired and been created. So I've just moved this to the front where we try and get the player state from try and get the team from the player state. So we make sure that we have the team before we try and create the widget, because when we pass over ourself as a variable into the player, we need to make sure we have a valid team variable, which will be set right here. And yes, now it works. If we press play and we look at the 3 clients, now it's all fine. It was working when we were updating it, but it was just, it hadn't yet loaded the team variable from the player state. But now we're all good, so let's just test that out. Accept, accept, accept. And when they'll load into the map, it's taking a while this time. They all have their health bars set to the correct color to reflect what team they're on. This one says new team player is red, so he's red. This one says blue, so he's blue. This one says blue, so he is blue. And everyone can see everyone else's team. If we press 2 on our keyboard, there's a 50-50 chance to change team, and everyone, we'll do it with this guy in the middle, everyone can see when the blue guy in the middle changes team, everyone sees the team change. Sometimes it doesn't go because we put it as a 50-50 chance, so if I'm trying to change to blue and I'm already blue, it doesn't look like it does anything. But yeah, now we're updating our team. Very nice. In the next episode, we're going to improve on this health bar and actually add the health system to it. But for today, that's everything. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.